Hi everyone, this is Joy and I'm excited to share with you a card using the Bursting Blooms stamp set. This is free with a $100 purchase for the month of February. Now here is the Bursting Blooms stamp set. Isn't that beautiful? The Spots Stencil, the 6x6 oval masking stencil, masking paper, foam sticky strips, white rhinestones. I'm going to be using Oreo ink, VersaMark ink, and Poblano pepper, sugar cube cardstock. I will be using the blender brushes for ink blending, white embossing powder, anti-static powder tool, Copic markers for Copic coloring, and grid paper. Now I'm starting with the stamp set, and in my MISTI I have removed the foam background because this is a red rubber stamp and so it's thicker. I have a piece of sugar cube cardstock in the MISTI and it is trimmed down about 1/8 of an inch on all sides, so it's not a standard A2 size, it's a slightly smaller. I am stamping up an image, and I'm actually going to stamp this image twice. One for the background of the card and another one because I wanted to hand cut some individual flowers. Now I'm also stamping this image on some masking paper. We're going to be using this because we'll be doing some ink blending around this floral image. So here's the masking paper, and I'm just using my scissors, and when you are cutting out for a mask, you want to cut directly on the black stamped line. If you cut outside of that, you will have a little white halo around your images, which you don't want. So this took a minute to, cut out with my scissors, but it's absolutely worth it because this card turned out so, so beautiful. Once I'm done cutting with my scissors, I'm going to come in with my X-Acto knife, and some of the little center pieces that need to be opened, I'm going to cut those out. I did not cut out every little spot because some of the spots were so tiny I was afraid that I would rip the paper. So I just cut out, again, on the black stamped lines, the bigger open areas, which made for a perfect mask. So here's the first image that we stamped, and I'm just going to peel the release paper off of the mask, and I'm going to line this up. It is important to stay inside of those stamped lines on the background panel. Again, that's why you cut inside of the black lines so you don't have that white halo around your image. Now, if you aren't going to be doing any ink blending around that image, it really shouldn't matter, but because I need to make sure that my masking paper fits inside my stamped image. So I'm just adjusting that, getting everything lined up, and now I've got this perfectly masked image. Now I have a piece of tape on the back of this card panel. I'm adhering that down to my grid paper. Coming in with my oval masking stencil. This is the largest oval in the set. And I've taped that down, and you can see on the grid paper, it just lines up perfectly for your paper and then for that 6x6 stencil. Now I'm coming in with Poblano pepper ink and my blender brush, and I'm really heavy on the outside edges. And then I'm just coming in gently in the center. I want the center of this inked background to be lighter, so I'm heaviest on the outside with the ink and then going in gently in the center. When I peel this back, we've got this beautiful inked background. Now I'm using the masking part of that oval stencil, adhering that down because I'm coming in with the Spots Stencil, and I'm going to be doing some white heat embossing for that white background. I did not want any of that on the inked image. So I'm prepping that with my anti-static powder tool. I don't want any little pieces of white embossing powder where it shouldn't be. Then I'm going to come in with my VersaMark ink. I started with a brush and then decided just to take the ink pad directly to the paper to get the majority of the ink down. Then I'm going to come back in with a designated blender brush. This is the Pastel blender brushes, just to get some of those outside edges and those smaller little holes. And once you pull that back, you can kind of see already those little polka dots all around the back, all around the outside edges of this card. Now I'm just sprinkling on some white embossing powder, and I'm just going to dump off the excess. Now before I heat this, I need to lift up the masking paper just off the white part of the card design because I don't want to heat that down and adhere it to my background, if that makes sense. So I'm just using my X-Acto knife and lifting that up. And then now I can heat this before I take the rest of my paper off. So I'm going to heat that until it's melted. You know it's melted when it's nice and shiny. And I definitely heat my heat tool. I warm it up before I take it to my paper. Now I can remove the rest of my masking paper, and I'm just doing it gently. It really shouldn't rip your paper, but I am just taking my time and going slow with it and just using my knife again to get all the spots lifted. Now for the Copic coloring, I really like a peach and teal combo. I think it feels very summery and it is such a pretty contrast. So for the flowers, I am using YR0000. That's the color I just put down. I'm coming in with YR02 for the centers of the flowers. I want those to be a little bit darker. Then I'm going to come in with YR00 from the center up. I will not go all the way to the ends of the flowers because I want to keep that very, very light, as you can see there. And then when I'm done doing this, I will come back with the YR0000 and just kind of blend out the tips of those flowers. I needed something a little bit darker in the center, so I came in with YR04 and just added the tiniest bit. And as you can see there, it really makes that flower pop. For the leaves, I'm using G24, 43, and G12. I am leaving the tips of the leaves white. I like that look with the flowers, so I wanted to carry that into the leaves. Again, laying down the light color, a dark color, a medium, blending it out the same way I did with the flowers. Now at the beginning of the video, I stamped 2 of these backgrounds. I did that because I wanted to fussy cut some individual flowers. So off camera, I colored those the exact same, and I used my scissors to fussy cut out a few of these individual flowers because I want to use some foam tape behind those for dimension. So this is cut out, and I am taking a black marker around the edges of all of these just to give it a finished look so you don't see the white paper on the edge. Now I have some foam sticky strips behind these flowers, and I'm just adding it on top of the matching flower on this really pretty Bursting Blooms stamp set. And as you can see, that gives it so much dimension, and it is so, so pretty. Now for the sentiment, this is in the Bursting Bloom stamp set, and this says, "Get well soon." I stamped that using my Misty with Oreo ink, and I'm just going to use my paper trimmer and just trim that out and add some foam sticky strips behind that as well. Then I'm going to come in with some white rhinestones and just add a few of those and adhere this to a white A2 size card base. And as you can see, I have a little bit of a white mask around the edge there because this panel was trimmed down a little bit smaller. Look at all the dimension on the card with the white embossed background to the leaves that have a ton of dimension and this beautiful inked oval. Thank you guys so very much for tuning in. You can find all of these products at the Tailored Expressions web store at tailoredexpressions.com.